when you get cold fronts like this coming in, this finesse fishing really works. But you have to be patient and really work the area that you're working very slow. That's one of the reasons why they call it finesse fishing. Now you can keep 4 walleye that are under 18 inches here at Horwood Lake. So we're going to see if this fish is over that 18-inch mark. It might be. Ready, Barb?
Okay.
You get it in there? Right in the netting, right in the boat.
Beautiful fish.
Nice.
You did, wow. Wow, it's
you know
a monster.
What? The bad news is it's over 18 inches. The good news is it's a nice walleye.
You did well.
Yeah.
That
See
is
if I
such a
can hold 'em up.
beautiful fish.
And you know what's a really nice sight here? You got to see this. Look at the way it hit this finesse fish. I'm going to hold it up for you. You think it wanted that little plastic minnow? Now, a lot of people, when they walleye fish, especially when the fishing gets stuffed, they'll actually go to live bait. And using live bait is okay, but I like to cover a lot of water and just keep it working. And I like to find walleye that are aggressive. Now, you know, I'm looking at this fish. You got to see the teeth that this fish has. Can you see those teeth on the roof of its mouth? Whole bunch of chompers. You know, a walleye is a predator. It's actually a big perch, part of the perch family. And they can see so well. And what amazes me here is you can see how bright the skies are. We just went through a cold front, yet these fish are still going around the shallows here in about 10 to 15 feet of water to feed. Now, he wasn't going to get off. And there, let me just turn this for you. Yeah, we're going to measure it in 1 sec, Barb. We just want to show them that little jig head that's got the eye on it. That's one of my favorites, so they can zero in on it. You can see it there. Now, that minnow body got turned a little bit and pulled back. I'm going to fix that in a little bit. Okay, Barb, measurement. We're going to go right up here and
squeeze the tail.
Squeeze the tail. Are we close to 26?
We are right on 26.
Good fish. Beautiful. One more look. And you know, this is a really nice Horwood Lake walleye. I'm going to give it a little kiss. Is that nice, Barb? You're still looking at the measurement tape?
Yes, I am.
You know what? If I can have the net,
okay.
I'm going to let it revive because I was doing a little bit of talking. You know, this fish has tons of power.
Oh,
can you tell?
Yes.
It's a real healthy walleye. Just goes to show you how productive Horwood Lake is. And I'm going to just hold him there below the surface for a second. And because this net is nice and shallow, I'm going to actually hold it like that. See if it rights itself. And you'll see it take off in just a moment. Watch this. Look at right down to the bottom. This is called a split grip. And it's called a split grip because there's a gap. You can actually see the blank of the rod. And if you look under the reel, you can also see that you can see the blank. The reel is actually touching the blank of the rod. And when I have my hand on this rod for jigging, see what happens? My finger is right on the blank. So it's very, very sensitive. That's the first thing that I want to say about it. This particular one is 2-piece and it's rated for line from about 6 to 17 pound test. So it's pretty stiff. But because it's stiff and it's 100% graphite, I've got really good sensitivity. The other thing that I want to talk about is the line. You notice that this line looks like thread. That's because I'm using that titanium braid. This particular one is 10 pound test, which is 4 pound test monofilament diameter. And because it has some color to it, it's like a gray color, what I've done here is added an inline swivel. You can see it right here. This particular one is a barrel swivel. So this is my titanium braid coming down to it. And then I've got a fluorocarbon leader that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But that inline swivel is about almost 2 feet away from my jig. And it absorbs any of the twisting that my jig produces. Because I have a straight knot to my jig, you can see that it's a tight knot. That means that when I pull the jig, it'll have a tendency of flipping over itself. When I drop it, it'll free fall, okay? So the fluorocarbon is extremely important. Fluorocarbon, unlike monofilament, is very clear. And I'm using 8 and 10 pound test on this strip. This is what it looks like when you're looking for it. The properties of fluorocarbon is that when light hits it, it goes right through. So it doesn't reflect light or absorb it like fluorescent lines. But also very important, it has a very abrasion resistant outer coating, which is very good. And you know, we have hooked some pike. Barb's biggest pike was about 37 inches and she had no problem landing it on the fluorocarbon. Now here's 2 really good colors to use of these finesse minnows when you're dealing with cold front conditions like we had today. You can see that both of them are rigged on a 1/4 ounce jig head. Both of them have little eyes. One is gold, one is silver. Both of these finesse minnows are 4.5 inches long. You'll also notice that the hooks aren't very big. They don't go back very far, okay? So you don't need to have the hook back from the head because the eyes are there. So when a walleye sees this thing, he zeroes in on the eye on the jig. most people know how to fillet a fish and remove the flanks off the fish. So what I've done here, this is about a 13 or 14 inch walleye, which is actually ideal eating size. You know, if you're in a restaurant, that's the size of walleye fillet that you'd get. I think a lot of us as sportsmen think that we need to have 3-4 pound walleye. And if you're fishing the Great Lakes, that might be a small fish. But here in Northern Ontario, walleye grow a lot slower because they don't have smelts and lake herring and alewife to feed on. So you have to recognize that these fish are old. So an ideal eating size is anywhere from about 12 to about 15, 16 inches. So that's a nice fillet. It's longer than the length of my hand. I'm actually arching the knife because I want to take as much flesh off the skin and to keep the fillet intact without going through the skin. Okay, so there is the actual fillet. You can see nice clean fillet, and there's the skin. You don't want to leave a lot of meat on the actual skin. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. Now, here's my clean fillet, but it's still got bones in it. Okay, the bones are right down there. So I'm going to show you a technique that a lot of friends of mine call zippering of fish. I'm going to take the knife, and this is the what we call the lateral line that runs down the fish. I'm going to notch 2 notches on either side of the lateral line. See how I've made a notch there and a notch there? Look at it, I've made like an arrow pointing down the fish. What I'm going to do is hold the lateral line with my finger, just like that, and I'm going to take the bottom part of the fillet and the top part of the fillet, and I'm going to split it. Watch what happens here when I pull on this. Watch where the fish separates. Look, I'm going to do it slowly for you. You see how it separates? Right down the lateral line of the fish. Okay, so what I've got here is the top part of the fillet, and that's almost ideal to put on a strip of bacon and to roll it up. Now here is the lateral line. This is the zippering part. Okay, watch what happens when I pull on it here. Look at, you see this thin strip of meat? In a minute I'm going to hold it up to the light. I don't have to be careful. I've got all of the Y bones. Look, I'm going to try holding this up to the light for you. I don't know if you can see the transparency, all the Y bones. I'm going to turn the strip because there's the actual lateral line. They call it the mud line on some fish because it's got that dark color. But it's actually a sensory organ that fish use to detect motion underwater, okay? So that's where all the little Y bones are, okay? So we've got quite a few walleye bobs here, and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of garlic powder on the last one that I have here. You can use lemon pepper, that works good. While the walleye bobs have been cooking, we've tried to maintain the temperature between 250 and 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've been watching them, and you know what? They're ready. So I'm going to be using this little protective pad and laying the walleye bobs on this nice plate. And you can see that the bacon is well cooked. Look at a whole new meaning to a fish burger. Can you believe that? How good that looks? And you can see that garlic pepper that we've got on there. Perfect. I'm going to take a little bite because this is actually still pretty warm. And then we're going to go inside and have our soup and our fish. What a great way to enjoy walleye and pike like this. Very easy to do, very healthy too. Wow. If you love to eat fish, you got to try this recipe. You're going to enjoy it.
Canadian Sport Fishing has been brought to you by Rapala Premium Fishing Gear, crafted from experience. Yamaha on the water. This is my Yamaha. What kind of Yamaha are you? Dickies, a legend in work since 1922. Lucky Strike. More fish fight with a Lucky Strike.
Most of our angling is done within 1 mile of the lodge launch right here. Yet the lake itself is over 11 miles long on Hardeman Bay, and you got 110 miles of shoreline available to the angler. Up in Hardeman Bay, we have depths of over 130 feet, and the water temperature doesn't rise that much during the season, so our fishing stays pretty consistent throughout the entire fishing season. July and August seem to be just as productive as early in the season or later in the season. Bigger fish later into the end of August into September. You'd be better off looking for the bigger ones, but your numbers come in earlier in the season, but mid-season we still have a good abundance of walleye catching.